Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back to my channel, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrology, with you guys again today. And today I'm wanting to just share some key sort of components and expressions and a bit of a deeper understanding, I'm hoping as well, relating to the planet Mars, and more specifically relating to Aries and Scorpio. So those are the two signs I'm going to cover today. Mars rules Aries, it rules Scorpio in traditional astrology, and certainly since Pluto's discovery, Pluto is the dominant assigned ruler to the sign of Scorpio. But nevertheless, traditional astrology is incredibly valuable, and it is important to understand it because that's the roots of where everything comes from until, you know, we continue to have further discoveries, because we are constantly evolving, you know. So these new discoveries are really just a reflection of our own evolution, you know, collectively and individually. Okay, so Mars in Aries. Now, Mars in Aries is it's in rulership, as I said. It's a very clearly, it's a very strong place to have Mars. There's no two ways about that. It's one of my favorite sayings, which is really a very Aries saying, because two ways would be Libra. No two ways is Aries, because Aries is one way. Anyway, it's just a side joke. Okay, so Aries is a fire cardinal sign. Its polarity point is Libra. So, you know, when you're assessing Mars in your chart, or also when you're assessing Venus for that matter, you always need to take into account and bring into the understanding of what's going on with that planet by actually looking at its polarity point, because the integration of the polarity point is essentially part of the soul's evolution. It's an absolute must in order for us to evolve. So Mars in Aries, one thing that I would strongly recommend, if I haven't said this before, if you're studying astrology, you know, Coco's back again. Yay. Hi, Coco. If you're studying astrology, quite apart from studying all the various levels that you may be studying from, one of the most important teachings that you need to learn and understand is the area of mythology. You know, mythology is a specialized area unto itself. There are people that, you know, lecture on the various myths that have come through history and so forth. But, you know, to really understand these signs and these archetypes, because that's what they are archetypes, and they are living through all of us. The archetypes are living through us. We are the embodiment of the archetypes. And the area of archetypes is what Carl Jung, you know, brought to the world of astrology, really, and to the world of psychology, of course. So studying the archetypes from that Jungian kind of level, and having that kind of understanding, and studying the myths, the mythology, is going to give you so much insight and depth to your understanding of how astrology works. So going back to Mars in Aries, now the Mars in Aries, as we know, Mars is the planet that is connected to war. You know, it's the Mars in Aries, god of war, really pertains to you could say, the Greek history and mythology. You know, when you go back into the myths, because you will find that there are various myths on every single sign, and some pertain more to the Greek mythology, and some pertain more to the Roman mythology. And they're both valid, but they both have some different ways of understanding these archetypes. So the Aries is more the angry god of war that comes from the Greek culture, Greek history, Greek mythology. And you could say that the Mars in Scorpio pertains more to the Roman side of the mythology. There's a bit of a softer edge because it's water, but we'll get to that when we discuss Mars in Scorpio. So as a result of Mars in Aries really emanating from that field, connecting to war and so forth, you can see why Aries and Mars in Aries can potentially be a very dangerous position to have Mars in if it is in the chart of an individual who is of a lower frequency vibration and who is completely unconscious. That would be the person that would kill somebody without thinking about it at all. There's no thought that goes into it. It's just pure action. You see, Mars in Aries can be that total rage that's so impulsive, so intense, so fiery, and so rash. It just comes out. There's no controlling it. There's no stopping it. So Mars on that level in Aries can be extremely dangerous. And indeed, I have seen it in many people's charts through the years, I'm referring more to some famous people and some people who have committed some pretty serious crimes against other people. So Mars in Aries is extremely independent, it's self-assertive, it's impulsive, it acts without thought. It also has incredibly powerful physical energy, physical stamina, and as a result needs to be physically engaged and active. You can't bottle up or box in a Mars in Aries person. They'll just go mad. There's so much drive and energy and will behind this fire and this force, and it needs to be used, but it needs to be used in a healthy way. So impatient is another very good word for Mars in Aries. Can't wait for others, simply won't. And that's not entirely a bad thing necessarily, but it just sort of really prompts them to just march. They march on their own beat. They've just got to do their own thing. They've got to do it when they want to do it. They've got to do it now. There's no tomorrow. It's now. Very competitive, really loves challenges, thrives on challenges, new beginnings, that's Aries, fights for their beliefs. And when I say fights for their beliefs, there's strong, physical fighting, you could almost say, that can be a component of it. Gets angry incredibly quickly, cools off just as quickly. So it's that sort of temper tantrum that you might see in somebody that just comes up, like this full force of fire, and then within seconds, it could just settle down just as quickly. So it's quick to anger and quick to calm down as well. Everything with Aries is very quick. So, Mars in Aries also can be very, very pushy, very demanding, very pushy, very get out of my way, I need to do this now. No patience, very impatient. And as a result of that, really struggles to cooperate with other people, because cooperating with other people is Libra. And that's the polarity of Aries. So Mars in Aries ultimately needs to integrate the energy of Libra, the understanding of Libra, which is cooperating with others, understanding others, listening to their needs and so forth. Mummy needs those. Extreme sports, adrenaline junkies. So when you think of, really severe, I've seen some amazing videos on YouTube, people doing some crazy stuff on that sort of sport level, jumping from mountains and skateboarding off, just doing crazy stuff, which is so much talent to it, but so incredibly dangerous. And it's just that that's what Mars in Aries would do. Those are the sorts of activities that it would really love to engage in and to explore. And sorry, I'm losing things because Coco's jumping around. She'll be back. So think of the adrenaline junkie, you know, anyone who loves, you know, really dangerous sports, you know, racing car drivers, that'll be Aries, you know, things like that. So they need excitement. They need adventure. They've got so much courage in what they do, which is why you see these people, you know, practicing these sorts of skills and sports that are very dangerous and so forth. They, you know, when you have a person who engages in those sorts of activities, there's so much innate courage and will that just shines, emanates through the person that they don't think. If they were to stop to think, they probably wouldn't do it. And that's the beauty of, you know, the Mars in Aries on that level. It can really inspire people as well, you know, to do things that they normally wouldn't, because just simply the sheer courage that you can see from a Mars in Aries person. I was saying to somebody the other day, actually, just drawing a distinction, you know, Mars in Aries would be, at its worst, would be the person that would grab a gun, shoot somebody, no thought whatsoever, no feeling, and that's a very important point. No feeling whatsoever, just action, boom, instinct, action, done, gone, finished. The Mars in Scorpio, this is the difference, and this is why I wanted to do this video, because I really wanted to draw the distinctions and the difference between the two signs that are ruled by the same one planet, Mars. So Mars in Scorpio, for example, because it's a water sign and it feels things incredibly deeply, and we'll go to that in a moment. If Mars was to kill somebody, pardon me, if Scorpio was to kill somebody, I'm using very extreme examples on, you know, purposely, because I really want to demonstrate just the contrast between these two energies. Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio would reflect on it. They would think about it. They would sit with it. They would let it simmer. And then they would do it. There's a lot of feeling, a lot of emotion that would go into any act, really, that Mars and Scorpio are connected to or engaged in, because that's just the nature of Scorpio. It has to feel everything from the depths of their soul. It's a very, very deep place, you know, to have Mars in Scorpio. Now, getting back to Mars in Aries, some of those things that I discussed are just the more or less general sort of characteristics of modern day Mars in Aries, you could say. And from an evolutionary level, pertaining to Jeffrey Wolf Green's reflections and comments on Mars in Aries, he basically says that a soul who's born with Mars in Aries is here to initiate a brand new cycle, all things pertaining to Mars. So this soul needs to experience a bunch of new things in their life. They have strong desires to release old past patterns and create and begin very new patterns with very, very new experiences. Everything has to be new this lifetime for them. All the attributes that I discussed a moment ago still apply even on this soul level, but this is just some additional thinking for you. Naturally, when you're looking at Mars, you will, in terms of how it's operating on a evolutionary level and just on a psychological Western, you know, level, if you like, the houses that Mars rules, the house that it's located in, and any aspects to the planet Mars, so the relationships that Mars has to the other planets in your chart, the other key players, is all going to describe how this soul is evolving through Mars in Aries, because all those other elements are going to contribute and unfold to this soul's evolution. So it's important, obviously, to always assess all these other components as well. Mars correlates to an instinctual resistance to anything or anyone that tries to restrict him or her. So this is the soul, this is the individual, this is the being who you can't stop them. You simply cannot stop them. They're unstoppable, and that's part of their soul's evolution. That's what they're here to do. They're here to create these new experiences as part of their evolution, essentially. The Mars in Aries can also reflect narcissistic and self-centered orientations to life as well, which is understandable. That's the nature of Mars at a very primitive level, very unconscious level. That's Aries, I should say, which Mars has that component when Mars is in Aries. Talked about the innate courage. That innate courage is also about breaking new ground. So they're with all these new experiences that the soul wants to evolve through and experience. They're groundbreaking people. They will do things that other people haven't done. It's an incredibly powerful place for Mars. Incredibly strong desires to be their own authority. You know, Mars in Aries, they don't like to be told what to do, and they won't. They won't be told what to do. That's just not going to happen. They are their own authority, and they will become very, very angry if somebody on an external level tries to project their authority on them or tries to control them in some kind of way. Mars in Aries will just lose their shit, basically. They won't stand for that at all. Sexually, they require extreme independence. And also, again, very strong desires for very new experiences. So they might have many, many different partners simply because they just love the new experience that they have with each soul that they merge with. They can be quite narcissistic sexually as well. Sexual nature is incredibly strong and intense. Of course it is. And also the soul is strongly integrated into the body as well when we're talking about a Mars in Aries person. Physical sexual body becomes primary focus for their consciousness. As they evolve, the primary thing that needs to happen is the integration of the polarity point of Libra. So they won't do that obviously early on in life. You know, I've seen it so many times, and some Mars in Aries may not do it at all, but the ones that do, you know, you will possibly see that perhaps in the second part of life, you know, when somebody hits their 40s or something like that. That's when they might start to integrate some kind of consciousness and understanding of the polarity being Libra, and the need to harmonize and balance that Aries Libra polarity within the Mars expression of their being and everything they do. And this is obviously going to come through very strongly in partnerships and relationships, because Libra is partnerships and relationships. So it's all about the integration of the Aries Libra energy within relationships. So relationships will challenge these individuals in very, very big ways, as you could imagine. So that's a little bit about Mars in Aries. And I want to get to Mars in Scorpio. As I said, Mars also rules Scorpio. Its polarity point is Taurus, and it's more the Roman god Mars. You know, it's got a softer edge to it. Now, Scorpio is a fixed sign, as is Taurus. Its polarity point. Mars and Scorpio people are not pushy like Mars in Aries. You know, they are persistent, so they don't give up. You know, they will persist to the death, literally, but they will not push and be impatient. That belongs to Aries. When somebody pisses off a Mars in Scorpio person, the Mars in Scorpio doesn't act anything like the Mars in Aries. They don't get angry immediately. For a start, it takes a long time to get them angry. It's like the slow boiler, boiling and simmering along over many hours, just to use a little analogy. So when angered, it just goes into a slow burn, and it just kind of stays there and stays there, and they feel it and they reflect on it, and there's a lot that goes on with it. It's the problem is, though, that it can be internalized because they're not immediately releasing it and expressing it. They internalize it, which on the one hand enables them to process things and to reflect rather than to be reactive, which is a good thing. But the other thing that might be unhealthy at times is this prolonged, internalized, suppressed anger that they just dwell on over a very long period of time. Sometimes it could be years, for example. That's an extreme. But it can be that very easily. That internalization can become a problem. It's like a slow cooker boiling over a long period of time. And I think most of us are pretty aware that internalized suppressed anger is very dangerous for our health in terms of our physical body, our internal organs, and also it leads to external situations manifesting into accidents, because that's just the internalized anger that's suppressed. So that's one thing that can happen with Mars and Scorpio. They can hold a grudge for a very long time, even for their entire life, because they feel things very, very deeply. See, that's the good thing about Mars in Aries. They might get angry, like really angry, but they'll drop it. They'll let it go. And they won't even think about it again. Mars and Scorpio could be thinking about it for their entire life. That's the fixed nature of Scorpio. And this is where the polarity point of Taurus comes in to teach them how to release and let go and relax, because Taurus is the one sign that can chill out, that can totally relax. It's the most relaxed sign. This is what they need to learn to integrate. Because of their intense feelings, they're able to remember and recall an event, the Mars and Scorpio. Something might have happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they didn't react to the situation. They didn't do anything about it. They internalized it. So then 10 years later, if they put their consciousness, their mind to it, they can feel the same level of anger and intensity that they would have felt 10 years ago. It's a reliving of those intense feelings. When they fight for something, something they believe in very strongly, something that they're very passionate about. Forgot to add the word passion, both for Mars in Aries and Mars in Scorpio. Incredible passion with their own drive and willpower and desires, and certainly with sexual energy as well. Very strong passion involved in both those signs. Mars in Scorpio, when they fight for something, they fight for something so deeply because it actually comes from their soul. The deepest emotions are evoked when they are fighting for a cause or fighting for something they're very passionate about and something they believe in. And when Mars in Scorpio likes something, they really, really like it. And if they dislike it, they really, really, really dislike it. There's no in between. It's very black and white. It's just the nature of Scorpio. So it's all or nothing, all or nothing. And I know you Scorpios out there can resonate with this, whether you've got Mars in Scorpio, whether you've got Venus in Scorpio or Sun in Scorpio. And some of you with Moon in Scorpio would certainly relate to a lot of these attributes as well. So when Mars in Scorpio relates to the world at large, they're relating from a very deep emotional soul level to everything that they are focusing on. It's the eagle eye. I've spoken about the eagle eye because the eagle is an animal that represents the Scorpio character as well. So when they focus on something, Mars in Scorpio, their focus, their penetration is just out of this world. It's out of this world. They can achieve a lot as a result because there's such tremendous will forces behind this energy that drives them. Now, on an evolutionary level, Mars in Scorpio, it has an extremely intense energy system internally. We've sort of covered that with some of the comments I've made. This intense focus on the nature of their desires leads to very intense motivations. They have very intense intentions that all reflect these very deep internal desires that they have, and these desires connect to their emotions and their sexual energy as well. The soul desires to understand the nature of itself at a very, very deep level. It needs to understand every emotion, everything that it feels, including the fears that could be connected to the things that he or she feels. There's a lot of fears that can come up. A lot of those fears connect to fears of abandonment and fears of betrayal. That's the one thing that Scorpio has about them. And they can be paranoid about that as well because, well, paranoid is a pretty strong word, I know, but it is a word that does, when Scorpio is operating, let's just say at a lower frequency level, you know, some of the things that come up is extreme paranoia. You know, I'm not saying that everyone with Scorpio energy is going to be paranoid, but that certainly is there. They need to understand and learn the right use of sexual energy. If anyone understands how powerful sexual energy is, it's the Scorpios, you know, because they have this access to this energy in a way that no other sign does. You know, Scorpio rules the genitals. That should pretty much tell you what you need to know. So they have very strong desire to, and not only strong desire, but they also need to understand the power of sexual energy and how it can transform their life, themselves, and their partners and their relationships as well. If they're operating again at a lower level, then you see a lot of manipulation with Scorpio, and they are masters at manipulating because that's just how it is. All water signs have the ability to manipulate, by the way. That's just the nature of water. So the three water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, can manipulate, but the way Pisces would do it and the way Cancer would do it is very, very different. And perhaps I can talk about that when I cover those signs, perhaps through Mars. But Mars in Scorpio, you know, it's very conscious about what it's doing. It's deliberately mastering a plan to manipulate a situation or a person or whatever. That's, you know, if it's operating at that lower frequency level, unconscious level. Desires on a soul level to do a lot of personal work on their self. You know, so Mars and Scorpio, they are going to be the people that are very, very deeply interested in the world of psychology, in the esoteric world, in the occult world, astrology, all things that are taboo, basically, because their investigation and they're delving into these rich wisdoms and subjects that are so vast are all aiding to their evolution, and they have such tremendous persistence and ability and will to apply themselves. So when they do, they penetrate very, very deeply and they learn so much about themselves, and that's exactly the thing that they want to do and achieve. They do this as well because it enables them to metamorphosize. This is paraphrasing a sentence from one of Jeffrey Wolf Green's books. It's the metamorphosis of fixed patterns of behavior that the Mars and Scorpio would have. Patterns of behavior and compulsions of all kinds as well. And by doing this, by metamorphosizing these patterns, these behaviors, these compulsion, obsessive compulsive disorders, for example, or behaviors are a Scorpio manifestation, experience. So the desire to metamorphosize all this is, in this way, what the soul does is it starts to actualize his experiences in order to evolve on a karmic level as well. So just a few more comments I have. Karmically, Mars and Scorpio desires to learn the value of sexual, emotional commitment versus following every compulsive attraction that they have. Because they do, they have that. It's innate within them. Another sentence I'd like to just paraphrase from Jeff's books. Love his work. Oh, it's just amazing. In evolutionary terms, Mars and Scorpio must learn and desire to learn that karma is directly osmosed and exchanged through sexual union with others. And as a result, what happens then to this Mars and Scorpio person is that they apply sexual discrimination, which is part of their learning, part of their evolution. And as they evolve, obviously they need to embrace the polarity, which is Taurus, as I said, which helps them basically detach a bit and relax a bit and rest a bit and just chill out. And it also enables them to reach greater self-fulfillment, self-sustainment, self-reliance, and self-empowerment. Because by embracing the Taurus polarity, they can sustain themselves on a number of different levels. That's what Taurus is about. It's about self-sustainment. And the Scorpio can get very enmeshed and entangled in undercurrents, emotional undercurrents of everyone around them, personally or professionally, certainly personally. They can get so caught up and dragged into other people's drama and all this sort of stuff. And part of them loves it because they just love feeling things. But it can be very, very destructive and very, very dysfunctional and not actually allow them to evolve. So it's very important that they embrace the Taurus polarity sign. So there you have it. I'm hoping that this small presentation... Oh, just one thing I forgot. Very important. This comment that I'm about to make really belongs to traditional astrology, which I really believe in, because that's how I learned with everything I first learned. And as I've said before, I've studied medieval astrology, and there's so many levels, so many principles and teachings that I still apply, today in my work, and that I value very much. And, the whole area of analyzing a planet from the point of view of its dignity, dignity being, is it in rulership? Is it in exaltation? If it's in any of those, then it's in dignity, obviously. If a planet is in fall or in detriment, then its dignity is, out there somewhere. So a planet that's assessed according to essential dignities and abilities has a lot to show you to help you understand how that planet is operating in that person's life. That is assessed in a number of different ways. And when we're talking about Mars, now Mars is a nocturnal planet. So it's a wet and moist kind of energy. And when you are looking at a birth chart and you see, okay, let me just start again. The sun, wherever the sun is located in the birth chart, whether it's in the top part of the chart, anywhere from 7 to 12 or 1 to 7, below the hemisphere, wherever the sun is located, that's going to tell you, that's going to define to you whether your chart is diurnal or nocturnal. So, for example, I was born just before midnight, and as a result, the sun is in my 4th house. That's essentially where it will be for pretty much just about everybody. If you're born around midnight, you'll find the sun on the IC in the 4th house. Now, it's probably going to be a bit technical to explain this, because using my Mars as an example is going a little bit beyond, because my Mars happens to be what's termed in haze or highs, whichever way you want to pronounce it. That's spelled Hayz. When a planet is in haze or highs, it holds incredible dignity in terms of what it's able to deliver and produce and actualize in the person's life. And my Mars happens to be that, which I'm fortunate, because my Mars is in the 12th, and the 12th house is one of the most difficult houses to have Mars. So the fact that it's in haze, it gets a lot of relief, a lot of release, there's a lot of good points going for it, because it's basically a nocturnal planet. It's in the nocturnal hemisphere of my chart. It's in a nocturnal sign. What else? They're the 3 things that actually make it in highs or haze. The fact that it's a nocturnal planet in a nocturnal sign in the nocturnal hemisphere of my chart. Now, this is important to understand, because an example of that's another way of saying that is that my Mars is 100% in sect. SEST. Planets are either in sect or out of sect, according to medieval principles and understanding. This is not an area of astrology that most modern astrologers really use. Some do, but many don't. Anyway, I'm bringing it in because it is something that I think is very valuable to understand. So because Mars is a nocturnal planet, and Mars is also known in traditional astrology as the lesser malefic. The greater malefic is Saturn, and Mars is the lesser malefic. So it's a lesser malefic, but it is a malefic planet. So therefore, it holds malefic tendencies and energies about it. So if it's out of sect, for example, so say, for instance, you've got your sun in the 4th and Mars is down there with it as well. That Mars is out of sect because it's in a hemisphere that doesn't do it justice. It doesn't work, because what happens is the sun heats up the Mars energy, and it makes that Mars more malefic, to use a modern word, more aggressive, which can cause a lot of problems. So it's good to pay attention to, where is Mars in your chart? Is it in the same hemisphere as the sun, or is it in the same hemisphere as the moon? And so on and so forth. But really, if you want to learn more about this, I recommend Chris Brennan's work. That's all he does. He does Hellenistic astrology, medieval astrology. He's got loads of podcasts online. Look him up. He's wonderful. He's got hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, and he's very focused into this stream of astrology. So if you want to learn more about it, you can certainly check out his work as well. I will bring more into my work, as I continue to do more videos. Just wanted to bring in a little intro today to kind of get you guys thinking, if you are not familiar with this. Now you are, so you can begin to explore it and investigate it and find out more yourself. I'm thinking of doing an online course as well for those of you that might be interested. I used to teach many, many years ago, so it won't be my first time teaching. And this is what I'm doing when I'm doing these videos. I'm teaching anyway. So I am thinking of putting a course together that will be pretty amazing, actually, because I will be integrating evolutionary astrology, medieval astrology, and Western, tropical zodiac astrology, and also integrating, the deep components of mythology and the archetypes, and so Jungian psychology, if you like, into my work as well, which is all there anyway in my videos. I draw from all these levels, But in the course that I will put together for you guys that are interested, those levels and components will be integrated into my course and course material. So that's my next goal, and that's what I'm going to begin working towards probably next year. It's going to take some time to put together, because I need to I need to put it together. So anyway, I'll keep you guys informed, and for those of you that are interested, you can always let me know, and we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, if you're interested in having a reading from me, I do many different types of readings, as I have mentioned before. You may want a forecast, natal chart, relationship, relocation, soul path, career path. You may want to look at health. You may want to look at anything. There's different types of readings that can be offered with regards to whatever your needs are. So feel free to contact me and let me know what you need. And we'll see you guys very, very soon with something else. Much love and blessings. Bye for now.